Okay, so the next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to make a copy of this. So if you imagine at the moment, this is my top of the door buzzer. Okay, so I've got the rounded rectangle for the top, these two little holes cut out. I want an exact duplicate of this for the base. So what I'm going to do is do that Control C and Control Shift V to paste in place. And I'm just going to come over to this central position here and drag down until that just locks and intersects just there, directly underneath it. And again, just to check we put it in the right position, we can see that over here in the transform palette we've got 190 mils. That's an exact millimeter measurement, so I've placed that exactly as I should. Right, my next step is to make the hook that's going to go on the top of this part of my door buzzer. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start making my shapes a little bit easier to see, and I'm going to do that by putting a little bit of fill on these shapes. So let me just select everything that's on the board here. So I've selected all my shapes. Up here, okay, this is what the fill colour would be of my shapes. Okay, so I can choose any fill colour I like, but probably a sensible one to do most of your design work in is to have a fill colour of white. And up here is my stroke colour, and again I can choose anything I want. Right, I'm going to choose a stroke colour of black for now, although we might change that later. So I've got a fill colour of white and a stroke colour of black. If you're finding difficulty viewing your shapes as well, you can make that stroke colour a little bit, make that stroke a little bit thicker just here. So that's made my shapes a little bit easier to see for now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to create a hook that's going to sit on the top here. So in order to do that, I need an ellipse. I just click over here, and my ellipse I want is 40 mil by 40 mil, like so. I'm now just going to position that ellipse, and I want it positioned so that it matches the center of my rectangles, and you can see there's that little intersect line that came up there, okay, just there. So that matches the center of my rectangles and where the perimeter of the ellipse hits that guide that I set up before. If you're not sure exactly that you've got that position perfect, just come over and have a look in your transform box here. We can see that I've got an X position of 130 mil, which would be about right, and I've got a Y position of 80 mil, which is also correct. So that ellipse is now in the right place, I know that, and you can see that it's filled in white now, which is perfect. Now I want a second ellipse to go around the edge of it. Okay. Now I could just come over here and create a new ellipse, make that 60 mil by 60 mil, and then again try and do the smart positioning so that that fits just like this, okay, which is fine for most simple shapes. If you had a slightly more complicated shape, though, there's a much easier way of doing this, and that is to go up to Object, go to Path and Offset Path, and now I can choose an offset value. Now I want an offset of 10 mil all the way around. What that's going to do is that's going to create an extra ellipse that's 10 mil away from this one, all the way around. Look, click OK, and that's my extra ellipse put in. So I now have these two ellipses here, 1 and 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these two ellipses to start off with. So click and click. And now what I want to do is just come over to my Pathfinder tool over here. This gives us lots of opportunities to combine different paths. So I've got this one which unites, so that just creates a single shape from my previous two shapes. So that one's no good to us. What I want in this case is the minus the front. So if I click that, what that does is that cuts out that inner circle from my outer circle, and you can see now I've got that transparency here, so that's like a hole through this shape, which is exactly what I wanted. So I've now got the beginnings of my hook. What I'm now going to do is I'm now going to merge this shape here with this one here. So click, and I'm going to hold down Shift and click this rectangle here. Okay, so I've got my ellipses selected and my rectangle. I'll just do that again. Click once here, Shift and click here. That selects both. back over to my Pathfinder tools here, and this time I want that Unite section, which makes these a complete shape. Now you'll notice that what happened when I did that was my two little ellipses disappeared. All of a sudden they've gone. They are actually still there, and I can show you that just by clicking on my fill color, selecting transparent again, and we can see that they are still there. They're just behind this shape. Well, that's not a problem. What we'll do is I'll send this one to the back. So do a little right click, okay, and what we can do is we can so what I'm going to do is a little right click and then arrange, and then I'll send this one backward, or send straight to back. So I'll send it backwards, and I've got my two little ellipses back. Let's just make sure that doesn't happen again. Let's cut these out of the shape, because if you remember, these are holes that are going to go through my base here. So what I'm going to do is select, hold down shift, select, keep holding shift and select, and then again use my minus front, cut holes there, and I may as well do the same with the base here, minus front. If we have a look, little zoom in on this section here, Control and plus to zoom in, we can now see that I can see the artboard behind those circles there. Okay, so that's been cut through nicely. Let's just zoom out a little bit. Right, so at the moment this looks like it could be hung on a door, but what I want is I want this to be much more like a hook. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit over on this section, and what we're going to use is that Pathfinder minus front to just cut through this circle to make a little hook. So I'll take my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to draw this time an arbitrary rectangle just down here. Okay, I'm going to make sure that it's below the central point of my circles. Okay, so the center point of the circle is about there, so I'm going to make sure that that is below the center point of my circles, and that it just cuts across my ellipses just at round about this point here. Select both again, and we'll just do that minus front, and now we've cut into my ellipses. Okay, now let's neaten this up a little bit, because we've got a sort of hook shape here, but it looks a bit messy at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to go on to my direct selection tool, which is this white arrow here, and that's going to allow me to select that individual little point there, which I can then just hit delete on my keyboard, and it will remove it. And this one here, and that will remove it. Okay, so that's sheared that off nicely. I'm now going to do the same down here, remove it, and remove it. Now the problem we've got now is Illustrator's tried to guess where my shape is. So Illustrator's made a fairly sensible guess and decided that although I've got a line that goes around here and it stops here, so the shape probably continues straight down to here, and from here straight down to here. So I'm going to correct Illustrator on this one. I'm just going to make sure that Illustrator realises that actually I want these 2 points joined together for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this point here, one point selected, hold down shift and click on this point here, and that's selected that point, and now I can go to object, path and join, and that's going to create a join between those two, and I'm going to do the same here, select, hold down shift, select, and then object, path and join. And you'll probably notice when you do the object, path and join that you have the little shortcut key that's explained to you here. So that's a Mac shortcut key. Yours will probably be Control J on Windows. On mine it's Command J, so that will join that. Now that looks much better, much more like a hook. Let's just zoom out a little bit there. So that's pretty good. What I don't like though is I don't like this sort of rough, sort of straight angular edges here. I've got everything else in nice smooth curves all the way around, but here I've got this nasty little joint, sort of sharp 90-degree corners, which I'm now going to get rid of. The way I'm going to do that is use an ellipse. So I'm going to take my ellipse tool there. I'm just going to click, and I know I want a 10mm by 10mm ellipse, and then I'm going to position that so it is just there. Now here's where I'm going to have to use my transform tool a little bit just to get decent positions on X. You can see at the moment it's positioned at X equals 105. Now that looks about right to me, 105 million from this edge, so there's 5 million from this edge here, but its Y position is saying is 79.728 millimeters. That's unlikely to be correct. Let's just change that to 80 millimeters, and that's now in the correct position. So as I said, we want that ellipse at about 105 on the X and 80 on the Y. I can now do my Pathfinder tool trick again, so select all those ellipses, just come up to Pathfinder, and we're just going to unite all those ellipses, and that creates a nice little smooth end to the hook there. So that is the basic shape done for the top and the bottom of my case.